Do you like movies and games also? Listen, so much more they all know. Vice, Pyro, Lotus, and friends. Welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 81, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I'm your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And I'm PyroJackFrost.
We have another great episode here with the OG3. Pyro, why don't you get us going here?
Alright, so I'll do my usual Granblue fantasy check-in. I've been playing through the story. It's nice because it gives you like an alternate way of playing the game instead of forcing you to just grind. And I think I've been talking to you guys about this before, and I said that it doesn't actually force you to grind to beat the story, which I think is great because it's just another way of having fun and not feeling that they're forcing you to have like these paywalls.
Yeah. It's just artificial padding at that point. Like when a game advertises like, oh, we have 30 hours of gameplay or whatever. If 15 of them are grinding, then like I don't know if I'm interested, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the game should allow you to play it at a normal pace and still be successful in doing like the main stuff. Like you could grind for your own edification or like to get something specific. But I'm really glad that you can play through the normal everyday story there at the pace that you naturally would play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really cool because with all the things the freebies they give and like this story thing, it makes me feel like out of all the phone games I guess you could play, that this values your time and money. Like granted, there's plenty of events that go on that you feel like you have to be playing pretty often in the week to get everything, but they don't force you to have to grind. And especially because another thing that they've been doing recently is adding weekly events from the past as permanent things you can do.
Oh, that's nice.
So assuming they keep doing that, even when they finish, there's a chance that you can just play everything that they ever had, which is nice.
That is.
Is the story compelling, or is it just like pretty rote for a RPG?
I would say it's not bad.
Okay.
It's very cliche, but it's pretty interesting. In the beginning, I was actually skipping through a lot of the story, enough that when I watched the anime, I was like, I don't remember this from the game. Oh wait, it's because I skipped all this stuff, and it's actually pretty close to it. But then I started actually paying attention, and it's pretty interesting. Like I said, it can get kind of cliche, but it's still pretty good.
Nice.
So I've been playing that a lot because most of the time I have to play games is when I'm traveling. But when I'm home, I've been continuing playing Final Fantasy VII. I would say I'm about halfway through. I'm almost at the end of Disc 2, which is when that very well-known scene happens with one of your party members.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. There's something bad that happens to one of the characters.
That's not what he said.
Final Fantasy VII.
That's not what he said.
Yeah, actually, Kate Sith dies, and that's actually not a lie. If you didn't realize that,
I actually didn't realize that.
he
Does
dies.
That happen in Dirge of Cerberus?
No. Actually, in 7, he dies because you need to create the black materia, and he says that since he's just remote controlled.
Oh,
he says,
yeah.
I'll sacrifice myself. And it's funny because he gives a little monologue and he says at one point, if another Kate Sith appears, don't love him more than you love me. And like 5 minutes later, a new Kate Sith appears saying, hey, I'm Kate Sith too.
I'm Kate Sith too.
Which is kind of...
At the same levels.
It is, and I think it's kind of hilarious just because they do that, but then one dungeon later, that other thing happens, so you might be thinking, oh, I can get this character back too. But nope, you actually lost this character.
Not regarding.
I don't think they've ever done that again in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I don't think they've done it before. I can't think of any other Final Fantasy off the top of my head where you actually permanently lose a character halfway through the game.
Yeah, and you lose her like well before her potential can arise. Like it takes a while for you to get her we're talking about Aerith here. Come on. You lose her like way before you would naturally get her like ultimate abilities and stuff.
Well, well, that's the thing that's so weird though, is that like you can get her ultimate ability, just like you won't.
I actually have her ultimate ability, but she hasn't she hasn't killed enough enemies to learn it yet.
Mm.
So you can get it, you can make her powerful, but then again, like I said, it's halfway through the game. So, and because I knew what happened, I tried to use her as little as possible, which actually brings me to a boss that I just had to fight called the Demon Wall, which they've had in like other games. And this guy was a pain in the ass. So
terrifying,
he had attacks.
Like, concept, by the way.
Yeah. He had these attacks that would do massive damage to the whole party. And now, like, Aerith is a healer, obviously, but she was not leveled well at all, and she had to be in my party for it. So it made it really difficult to get through that, and I finished it with it through the skin of my teeth. So Aerith and Tifa were dead. Cloud had like 200 life left, and I just managed to beat him when it happened. And I'm like, they both died, and I'm like screw this. I'm gonna keep fighting as long as I can. And like I said, Cloud had 200 life. I did a normal attack. He died, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not resetting this. They're dead. They don't get any experience.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
They failed me.
Now, you're playing the Steam version of this, right?
Yeah, I'm playing on Steam.
So, I for anybody who doesn't know, this was actually the original PC port that Eidos had made back in the 90s.
And you can tell.
Yeah, well, it's basically they had to build it from the ground up to get it to work on PCs, so it doesn't look or sound like the original game. It kind of looks a little bit more streamlined because I believe in the original game they had to make 3 different versions of all the characters. Like one for on the
just
map
running
screen.
Around the map.
Yeah, one for the battle and one for like cinematic use. So like all of their proportions varied greatly from all of those different things because different people made them. I believe that version kind of cleans a little bit of that up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't tell. Like, all I know is that you can tell it's an old PC game, let's say, because it feels clunky.
Yeah.
Like when I said last podcast, it didn't seem to age well, just because it feels clunky, and I had a few minor issues that aren't like game breaking, like with sound or whatever. But it keeps making me want to play 9 because I know they added a lot of quality of life improvements to 9, kind of like from Bravely Default. So you can like fast forward or slow down battles. You can
that's fantastic.
Turn off random encounters, which is a godsend. Like when you're trying to when you go into an old area and there's just really easy enemies and you want to avoid them, or you're at a really hard area and you just want to get to a save point. So it's really nice. But as I'm playing 7, like I said last podcast also, I just keep wanting to play 9, but I keep having to stop myself saying, no, just beat it, get it over with.
Yeah.
Which also, I've been playing with a walkthrough for a little bit, and then I kind of stopped doing that because the amount of time it would take me to get everything isn't worth it, and I need to move on with my life.
Yeah, just beat the story sufficiently, you know?
Beat the story, only grind what I need to beat a boss, let's say. Don't worry about getting everything. And just get it over with, because like I always say, 9 is my favorite, and that would be the one game that I would love to grind in just because it feels so fun to play. Whereas 7, I'm really just playing for the story anyway. So there's that. Plus, like I always say, there's so many other games I want to play. I just need to move on. Yeah, so it's going. I'm hoping that I can beat it within, let's say, a couple weeks. As long as I have time and not try to juggle too many things at once.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so the other big thing I wanted to mention actually is a movie that I saw on Tuesday. If you are unaware, if either of you are unaware, if anyone who's listening is unaware, AMC has they have this deal. So it's a $5 ticket Tuesdays. So every Tuesday, you can get a ticket for $5 for any movie.
Oh yeah, and they also have a really nice rewards
which is
program on
like
your
a godsend.
they have a really nice rewards program on top of that if you use their app.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would definitely use that in conjunction.
I'm not sure if the $5 thing is only for AMC stubs because my girlfriend has it, so I don't know if we only can use it because of her or not. But every now and then, if there's a movie we want to see, we usually go on a Tuesday after work, and it worked out great because there's a theater that's only 15 minutes from us. So the movie we saw, actually, I've been talking so much about that. The movie we saw was Jumanji 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Whoa, that's not really the subtitle.
Do you
It's
know
Jumanji
the story behind that?
Welcome to the Jungle. What was that?
Do you know the story behind that sequel name?
Yeah, there was
I
a
don't
movie
know
with like
the-
street dancing called Breakin', and then Breakin' 2. It was actually called Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, like I knew that, but I don't know anything about the movies themselves.
Well,
It's
actually,
like dancing
it was
to raise money to save a community center, that kind of thing.
It was actually the name of the dance group, Electric Boogaloo.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's not as stupid as it sounds, but if you have no context, it absolutely is.
Well, my first
It's still a stupid name.
Well, my first experience with that title ever, because I had never heard about Breakin' until like just a few years ago. But like when I was
The Canon Films documentary.
yeah, great. No, when I was much younger, my library would have some of the Pokemon manga, which I think was not canon. It was like starring Satoshi, instead of Ash.
Well, Satoshi's original name.
Was it? Okay.
Japanese.
But
yeah.
even so, there were things that happened in the manga that I don't think quite lined up with the anime and whatever. But one of the issues, and I doubt this was the original Japanese title, but there was something with like Pikachu, Electric Boogaloo, or whatever, and I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that means, but at least it makes more sense than the actual original movie's title. At least in the context of Electric.
Just in case people are like grinding their teeth, I believe the manga is the official canon, and the cartoon is not official. Yeah,
I thought the video games were.
Well, okay, yes.
The cartoon's based off of the games, but the manga's based off the cartoon.
The manga is actually a retelling of the actual game and adding more story beats to it, whereas the cartoon, I think, took its own liberties with stuff.
Yeah,
I think the manga, the character is actually just called Red, just like in the game.
No, he's called Satoshi.
Well, there are different.
Oh,
I think there might be different mangas. The ones I read were definitely
there
Satoshi.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, back to Jumanji. So Jumanji 1 was actually like a really good movie, and I know I loved it. I really want to watch it again because I haven't watched it in a while. And I know when the trailers were coming out for the new Jumanji movie, people were kind of not sure and like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Jumanji shouldn't be like this, etc. But I will say that after having watched the movie, it is good.
That's what I heard in general. I heard it had a positive reception.
It's a sequel, but it doesn't require you to watch the original, and they have just enough callbacks and descriptions of things that'll be like, oh, cool, I remember that from the first movie, or oh, hey,
okay.
like,
Really, there were some callbacks.
There were.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
But not like heavy-handing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's
there's
good.
Van Pelt's in it.
There's like two or three things that I actually.
it.
There are 2 or 3 callbacks that I really want to mention, but it wouldn't be spoilers. But I really, if you
it takes
two are
away the
gonna watch
magic.
it takes away the magic of when you actually notice it happening.
Sure.
I want to see it.
There's that. Yeah. But I will say too, a lot of people were complaining like, "What? Jumanji was a board game. Like, there's no way that like it's a video game now. Like, what happened?" But I'll say, and this happens in the very beginning of the movie.
It's magic.
It makes sense because Jumanji, the board game, was like that because at that point in time, people played board games.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning of the movie, and again, this isn't spoilers. There's really no reason why like I wouldn't want to say this.
It's the conceit of the movie. Yeah.
There's a dad that brings the board game to his son, and says like, "Oh, look what I found," and the son is like, "Oh, whatever," and puts it aside, and it just goes back to playing video games. And the board game then, seeing that video games are the new thing, turns itself into a video game.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, it always was a magical thing, so it wants to be played, right?
It wants to be played, and it wants to have a person to save its world, let's say. So I figured the best way to do that is to turn itself into whatever form of entertainment people have. So if they're going to make a third one, it might become VR or something.
Yeah.
But I will say the movie was really good. I do recommend watching it. And I will say also that Jack Black is an amazing teenage girl.
That's what I heard, yeah.
It was
way better than Rob
hilarious. It was great. I could not stop. I actually was laughing so hard a few times that I had to stop myself because I felt like I was disturbing everyone else in the theater.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Some other things I did that I might actually move on to talk about like in another week or something, but I played a lot of board games over the weekend. A lot of, actually, I think all of them were co-op games. So that just might be a bit that I talk about in the future, just co-op board games that I really enjoy.
Sure.
Because I think at this point in time we should move to Lotus Prince.
Maybe
Why don't you tell
we
us?
can even do a recon topic.
Yeah, maybe we could do a recon on it.
Yeah, why not? All right, well, the first thing will be quick. I mentioned that I've been uploading Dark Souls, and now it is publicly available, the first few episodes. So Dark Souls is just moving along. The game's freaking sweet, and I just look forward to seeing people's reactions to it. Even if they know the game, like I'm trying to do a comprehensive look at it. I'm not doing a speed run, or this isn't a blind LP or anything. So, and especially for anybody who doesn't know the game, it's cool to see it for the first time, because that game is a spectacle.
Yeah, part of me wants to go back to Dark Souls. I forget how far I got into it.
Well, Remastered's coming out.
Yeah, because like I played Bloodborne. I loved it. I beat it. For 3, I got to I beat Pontiff Sullivan, so the boss after him, and I just got in so much trouble with him. I just put it down for a while.
Sure.
But since I'm starting to get into how you're supposed to attack one of those games.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go back to the other ones and just see how far I can get before I just get frustrated at a boss.
Yeah, I think I've said this last time, but I'm looking forward to those Kingsfield games because I want to play my way through the Kingsfield quintilogy and then make my way back to Dark Souls.
Quadrilogy.
No.
Oh no, there's 5.
Yeah, there's 5 because there's
Quintilogy.
there's Kingsfield 1, Japan, and then there's the Ancient City, which is the 5th one, which is our 4th one. Because numbers.
Wait, no. It's our 3rd one.
No, we had Kingsfield 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It's like Final Fantasy.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's quadrilogy.
Yeah. No, it is a quadrilogy. You're right.
6 is
okay.
3 number.
No, you're right. It is a quadrilogy because our 1, 2, and 3 are Japan's 2, 3, and 4. No, good call. You're right. Quadrilogy. Okay, nice. Good. Saves me a game. I guess Eternal Ring is the 5th one, even though it's not a Kingsfield game. It plays like Kingsfield. It's fine. There. It counts. Speaking of Eternal Ring, actually, I did some more streaming of that, and I don't know what the hell was up with that previous dungeon I mentioned last week where the lizard man just 2 and 3 shot me, but the dungeons that I did after that went back down to, like, tolerable difficulty. Like, I was allowed to take hits again. Like, the lizard...
I watched your video with the Queen Bee.
Dude.
Even though,
that video.
like... When I watched it, because you mentioned it, it kind of ruined it a little bit.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I'm like, I could expect something coming, but when it happened, I'm like, oh, okay, that is still pretty screwed up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
it's
how,
pretty screwed up.
And that stinger, it's like taller than you are. Like, what is this? For the thing with the lizard men, even the lizard men are actually not bad to fight if you exploit circle strafing and everything. But like, wow, do not let them touch you ever. It's just a game ender, and they're sometimes in packs. It's just like a 3. It's like I do not need this in my life. You can pick and choose who attacks you, though. I think you're allowed to hit one and have it come running. I don't know. I forgot if that attracts its friends or not. But in any case, there's that. Now, one thing about Eternal Ring is that for the first bunch of dungeons in a row, there's like maybe one new enemy, or else you're getting straight up the same enemies as the last dungeon, or color swaps or what. But the last couple dungeons I entered had a bunch of new stuff, which was pretty cool to see. There was one enemy that kind of threw me off. It was called the Berserker, and it just stands there and shoots a slow-moving magic spell at you like a fool. So I'm like, okay. But if it ever hits you, it seals your magic away for like 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever, and then the Berserker starts running at you and doing like frantic melee slashes, and I'm like, oh no, because like an enemy that's designed to fight properly with melee style, it's pretty hard to fight against it with melee. So I'm like, well, I'll just hit you with a fireball. Oh, so it's like all of a sudden they become pretty terrifying, so you gotta just run away from them for a while. And it's been a long time, but I actually finally fought a boss, because the first dungeon didn't have a boss. I think the second one did, and then I went back to the village that I came from to get to the first dungeon, and then there was a boss there, a minor one, and then the next bunch of levels in a row, not really, because the thing is, I went into a poison cave, and then a larger maze-like cave, and then I was led to this different village. But I could have gone that way, or I could have gone through the horrible lizard man forest, so I actually had branching paths that come back and converge on themselves, and none of those places had bosses. But then past the tree village, past the cliff forest with the lizard men, into the next area, that had a boss. And I was actually able to beat him pretty easily because I've been trying, like, I haven't been doing the best job with making rings that increase my elemental affinities, but I have been doing a decent job making rings that cast powerful magic spells. And generally, your level 1 attack spell is a horizontal, like a projectile that shoots forward, but it's kind of weak, but it just shoots forward. Level 2, it runs along the ground. It's stronger, but if an enemy's flying in the air, you're just not going to hit him. And if he's across a pit or something, then your shot will just fall down. So level 2 is stronger, but you must use it on flat terrain. Level 3, the thing tends to just remain stationary, but if an enemy gets near it, then it's devastating. I don't know what this is for water and earth, but for fire, you leave a glowing, basically proximity bomb in the air, and for winds, you leave a giant tornado that kind of directs itself toward an enemy if it's already really close, and just deals continual damage. So that's what I did on the third boss, and I wrecked him. Like, the boss was the boss was rather dangerous. He starts throwing a bunch of stuff at me, but when I hit him with Tornado, he just kind of didn't know what to do. So that felt pretty nice.
Do bosses have, like, elemental weaknesses?
I don't know. I don't know if he was weak to wind, or if that was just a crazy spell. I think they probably do, though, because the game in general is very elemental based. Everything is earth, fire, wind, and water, and later on there's light and dark. So I assume they do. Like, the first boss was obviously water themed, but the only magic I had at the time was, because I hadn't unlocked the ability to make new spells, was the fireball. So it was that or sword. So I'm like, I guess I'll use the fireball against the water monster. So, like, I didn't really have much opportunity to experiment with that one. But I assume that things are elemental based. Like, that was obviously a water dungeon. I have been through what is obviously an earth dungeon, although I haven't fought, like, an earth boss or anything. So, I don't know. I guess I'll see how things play out. But that was rather entertaining. And I actually put the boss up on its own isolated clip on YouTube. I called it something like a climactic ? Boss encounter in Eternal Ring. Because the guide I was using said, like, now I'm going to warn you, this is going to be the hardest boss you've had to deal with. And he did deal a lot of damage to me when I got close, but he went down fast. Then there's Yakuza Kiwami. I finally beat that. And
nice.
Yeah, thanks. And with the Yakuza games, I think I might have mentioned this before, I don't try to platinum them, and I don't try to complete every single thing on my completion list, like the mini games, doing all the gambling game. Like, I don't care. I consider it complete if I unlock and beat Amon, because to do that, you must beat every sub-story, which are the side quests, and he's like the final side quest, and then there are some other caveats to that too. In Yakuza 2, you almost had to do everything anyway, except for, like, the gambling stuff. In other Yakuza games, it's usually, like, all the sub-stories, and I forgot what else. It's, like, one other thing. In Yakuza Kiwami, you had to do all the sub-stories and complete Majima mode, and to complete Majima Everywhere mode. The thing is, to complete Majima Everywhere mode, to do that, you also have to complete the Colosseum. So there are little sub-things you need to complete, although, unlike Yakuza 2, the Colosseum is way more forgiving. Maybe it's because of superior controls, but I was not, like, crying through the Colosseum like I was in Yakuza 2, because that was just... man, that was not fun.
Kiwami 2 was announced, right, for this year?
I believe it was. I am so high. I think Yakuza 6 is going to come out first, but I kind of wish Kiwami 2 would come out first, because 6 is, like, the conclusion.
What other have you beaten all the Yakuzas up to this point?
Yeah, I'm finally caught up. So that's Yakuza 1 through 5, and Kiwami, which is 1 again, and Dead Souls, the non-canon zombie game. Oh, duh, excuse me. Yeah, 0 through 5. Sorry. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, Dead Souls, 4, 5, 0, and Kiwami 1. So there's Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2 coming out. I am really hyped for Kiwami 2.
You forgot the Black Panther games and the
the ones I can't play. Yeah, but so I'm super hyped for Kiwami 2 because it's one of my favorite Yakuza games. But I'm super hyped for 6 because I don't know what's going to happen in it. That's the thing with Yakuza 1. Like I know who the villain is. I know who dies. I know the reveals. Although speaking of which, there was one thing I didn't know, which Kiwami covered, which is the thing with Yakuza 1 is you're best buds with your friend Nishikiyama, and so you have a decent time in cutscenes, and then Nishiki kills somebody, and you take the fall for it to protect him, and that's how the game starts, and you go to jail for 10 years. And when you come out of jail, you don't know what's happened. It's been a decade, but Nishiki has obviously changed, and he's like going to be a villain. Like there's no way he's not going to be. Like he doesn't want to fight you, but clearly like you're not going to settle this with words. It's that kind of villain. So like he's definitely gone down the dark side. Why? Shut up, that's why. Like he does kind of have a bit of a reveal toward the end of the game when he's like, well, I wanted to do this and that. But in Kiwami, after you beat certain chapters, there's like 13 or 14 chapters, every few chapters, it'll just go to a cutscene of what Nishiki was doing in the past, so you kind of see how he would get more and more desperate and angry as the game goes along. So it's kind of nice that they do that, because in the original Yakuza, it's just like, he's a bad guy. It's been 10 years, you don't know. Like, anything could happen, who knows? So Kiwami kind of allows you to see more of a progression. Like, he still starts on the dark side, you know, after you get out of jail, because that's how they establish him, but the game kind of retroactively fills in some gaps, which is kind of nice. So I appreciate that. Also, Amon. The thing with Amon is with each game, he gets harder and harder. Although I had a reasonable time with him in Zero. With Zero, the Majima Amon, I had to learn to do my counter move, which does devastating damage.
What does Amon mean? Like,
I actually saw that in a guide, because the person who put up the GameFAQs guides for like Yakuza 1 and 2 played the Japanese versions and translated them. So he said Amon, I don't remember the exact meaning, but it had something to do with like other, or like off a branching path or whatever, and like probably the logic is like, I'm of a different class than the rest of you plebs, like that kind of thing. Okay. So it's not like Warui other, but it's kind of like it's something like that. Like,
so it's not the same character in each one; it's the same role in each one, right? It's a character playing the same role in each one, or is it the same guy?
It's mostly the same guy. In Yakuza 1 through 5, you fight Joe Amon, J-O. But in Yakuza 2, he introduces.
Wait. Joe means person.
Okay, fair enough. So that makes sense. And then in Yakuza 2, he introduces his 3 partners. So there's, I forgot their names, but I think there's like, they basically mean 2, 3, and 4. Like I remember Sango was, San means 3, and there was something like something with Ni for number 2. They're in the names somewhere. And then you fight the 4 of them in Yakuza 2, 4, and 5. I forgot about 3. I think 3 might have been a one-on-one again. In Yakuza 0, for once in your life, you meet Amon, and he's like, I can't fight you right now. Don't have time. Like, our ancestor, because it's the zombie game, like, our ancestor's alive, and he's crazy. Like he beat the shit out of all of us, so you have to fight, like, Ancestor Amon. And in Zero, Majima fights Joe Amon, which I was actually really happy about, because I was like, well, Zero can't have an Amon, because Kiryu meets him in 1, but Majima meets that one in 0, and then he never meets Majima again, so he finally meets Kiryu in 1. When he beats Majima, he's like, I might find someone even stronger than you. And meanwhile, Kiryu fights the older Amon, who you, like, never see again. That fight wasn't so bad, you just have to watch out for his cheap spam. I gotta say, Amon in Yakuza Kiwami was one of the easier Amons in a while. Especially after 0, because I'm allowed to do that move where you hold the ready position and do the counter punch, and it does stupid damage if you can pull it off properly. But Amon's gimmick is basically running around really fast and then just rushing in your face. I'm a little more nervous about Yakuza Kiwami 2 I'm on, because in Yakuza 2, that's when he started throwing around grenades like a maniac. Now with 1, they somewhat changed his style up. I appreciated that they went back to how original Yakuza 1's I'm on was, where you beat him and you take down all of his health bars, but then he gets up, there's a phase 2, unlike every other enemy in the game, and you're like, oh, geez. So they brought that back. I'm curious as to how 2 is going to be handled, when he starts just throwing grenades around like a berserker. But I am terrified of 6, because 4 and 5 were crazy. Like, 5 was bullshit. 5 was straight up bullshit. Like, I loaded my entire inventory with full heal items, and I think I used all of them. Like, that fight was insane. And, like, I did the same thing with Yakuza Kiwami, but, like, I over-prepared for that fight. Like, but Yakuza 6, I don't even want to know. That's, like, that might even be the conclusion of the Amon arc, which I would love, because Amon gets, like, angrier and angrier with each passing game. Because each time, like, after Yakuza 1, he's like, oh, I'll come back stronger, just you wait. And then in 2, he's like, I've gone through insane training. And then you beat him, and he's like, oh, that's it. And like,
it's just a personal vendetta, right? Like, there's no, like,
well, that's the thing.
Nothing behind this, right?
Yeah, in Yakuza 1, he's like, oh man, I'll be back. But in like 2 onward, he just gets madder and madder, because he eventually starts, like, he's like, I want Kiryu to fight me. So he starts, like, attacking Kiryu's master. He starts, like, threatening innocents' lives. And each time Kiryu beats him, he's like at least do me the honor of killing me. And Kiryu's like, I'm not a murderer, I'm not going to kill you. And Amon's like, son of a bitch, like, I'm gonna make your life miserable as long as I live. And Kiryu's like, well, I'll just have to be prepared for it then. And Amon's like, fuck! So, like, I'm really curious as to how this is gonna end in 6, if it ends. Like, I'm really curious. The last thing I'll mention real quick is I also started streaming the Sexy Brutale, and that game is sweet. Like,
what is that game again?
So, Pyro, what'd you say?
What is that game again?
Okay, so, do you guys know Ghost Trick?
Yes.
It's kind of like that.
Okay.
It's not a strictly 2D experience. You run around among rooms, and you expand your map and things like that. Now, here's an odd reference to make, but you guys played Majora's Mask, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A little bit.
Even if it's a little bit, do you remember, like, the Bomber's journal or diary that you got really early on?
Yes.
Yeah, so what that thing did, for anyone who may not know or who forgot, is as you play the game, you'll see where characters go in the town from day to day, and you'll mark that down in your journal. Like, at 3 o'clock on day 2, this person will be here. So if you don't remember how to get things done for side quests, that's an invaluable resource. You kind of have that in the Sexy Brutale.
I'll even clarify even more.
Uh-huh.
So the town in Majora's Mask is called Clock Town.
Yeah.
And that's a metaphor for the way that the world works.
Mm-hmm.
Everything goes around on a schedule every single time in a big loop.
Yes.
And so they're always moving around in the same spot at the same time.
Yeah, you can absolutely guarantee where an NPC is going to be if you've seen it before, if you remember what happened. So in the Sexy Brutale, you're in a casino/hotel, and this place is like, man, this is like the coolest looking place.
Happening place, huh?
It is, oh man, and the soundtrack is just too good. But you're in this place, and the problem is that apparently the staff of the hotel is working to kill the guests in the hotel. But it's not necessarily the staff doing it. Everybody's wearing masks. It's a masquerade. But the masks themselves may be possessed, because you can never share, at least so far, I don't know what happens at the end of the game, but you can never share a space with anybody. If you enter a room and somebody else is in there, then the screen will go red and their mask will fly off and come at you and attack you. And the Sexy Brutale is not a game where you're ever supposed to be at risk of death. Like, that's not what the game's about. Like it basically, it happens just to show that you can never interact with the characters directly, because the characters do what they do, and they will always do what they do. Like, you can never walk in the room and they'll be like, oh, hi, you, because that'll disrupt the flow of events. So you have a kind of Bomber's Journal in the Sexy Brutale, where if you observe things that happen, then you'll know where the characters are. So you can go to your map screen, and there's a slider where you can adjust what time it is. And you'll see the characters go from room to room. Like, it's really cool. Now, because you can't know what they're saying or see them, you can sometimes go into little armoires and stuff and hide, and then the characters can come in the room where you are, as long as they don't see you. And if they talk to somebody or if they do things, talk to themselves, you'll pick up on that. Otherwise, normally what you do is you try to get one room away from them, and you look in a keyhole. So you have limited cone vision, but you can also hear what they say, as long as they're speaking in conversational tone of voice. Now, what you need to do is find out when they die and how, and then see what you can do to prevent this thing from happening. And what's cool is that when time's up, time resets. It's like you got to undo it and try it again. And you can also reset when you choose. If you're like, oh, I messed it up, let's reset time. Now, what's interesting, though, is that time resets, and whatever you did was undone, but your knowledge isn't. So there was one case where I actually had to let somebody...
Wow, that's very Majora's Mask.
Yeah, so there was one case where I actually had to let somebody die, so I can use something they dropped to open a drawer to find a recipe for something. And then when I looped time... You always know
the recipe.
Yeah, when I looped time, I was like, oh, I'll do this thing before they get close to it. So it's stuff like that. So it's really cool to see how this game plays out and try to save everybody. I'm curious, though, as to what the overall plot is, because there's like this blood maiden who just teleports away in like a pool of blood. Like the game gets supernatural, and she's the one who's kind of guiding you through the game, and I don't know who she is or why any of this is happening, but I guess I'll figure it out. What's cool is when you save characters, you can pick up the masks they were wearing and they can give you some abilities. One of them is just, now you can have more hours in a day, to work with. One of them was from a blind person. So if you use the mask's ability, then if people whisper, or if you're on the other side of a room and they type in the buttons on a keypad, you can hear what those were. So it's really cool. Like, that's how you can find out codes to get into locked doors. It's pretty entertaining. So I've beaten the first 3 cases, and God only knows what I'm gonna do later on, but I'm super hyped to find out. So Sexy Brutale is freaking amazing. But that's
great.
It is. So that's been my week. How about you, Vice?
So yeah, I've had a really hellish week in between work and prepping for the move and the actual move. For anybody who hasn't been following, I moved into my girlfriend's apartment in Pennsylvania. I used to live in New Jersey, and tonight is actually my second night here living here. So it's the first night where I'm like actually like kind of living here and doing stuff rather than just like putting boxes into the place.
It's a big life change.
Yeah. First girlfriend I've ever lived with, that kind of thing. So it's really exciting. We're really looking forward to our lives with each other. We're having a great time here, but I am exhausted, like mentally and physically, just from the move. Just to give people context, I moved. I started packing and the whole routine 8 a.m. yesterday, and I didn't stop until 12:30 at night.
Oof.
Yeah, so it was harrowing to say the least. And also, I had stuff to do today. I had to that was just the moving van.
Yep.
I didn't unpack my car until this morning, and I was sore as hell. And I also needed to clean out my old apartment and do like the final clean, so I could get my deposit back and all that stuff. So
when is your when do you have to move everything out by and clean up by?
The 31st. It's done.
Okay.
So thankfully, we're recording this on the 28th. So got out of there ahead of time. So, but we're good now. So we're working on placing all my. I got a lot of shit. Everybody knows this. I'm a collector. I have a lot of really cool stuff and a lot of useless stuff. So. We got to sift through it and integrate it anyway. So anyway, I did get in a little bit of stuff here and there just to pass the time. I played a little bit of Titan Attacks. I don't know if you guys have ever played this.
Is that explain it, because I think I played it.
It's basically like Space Invaders.
Okay, yes,
like a newer Space Invaders, but it's like cute. Now, this is a game that I played a lot on the Vita back in the day, and it's a very good game to have on your Vita because it's a really good just version of Space Invaders. There's a progression, which is nice. There's some modern elements to it that make it more complicated than Space Invaders, but it also it's not as hard as Space Invaders because Space Invaders just wants you to die. This game actually allows you to have a progression and play it for a while, and I had a fun wasting time on that. It's cool because you can actually I never actually played the console version or the Steam version. You can actually use your mouse.
Oh, really?
Which is really cool for a shmup because it's like it's a quicker control method than it's more analog than what you're used to on the console. So it was a lot of fun. Wasted a little bit of time on that. I also picked up Zwei, the Arges Adventure.
I've played Zwei 1 and 2, I think. What is the Arges Adventure?
So that is the English version of Zwei 1.
Oh, okay.
So Zwei 2 Plus was translated and released, I think, towards the end of November last year. And there was a surprise announcement, probably only 3 or 4 weeks afterwards, saying, "Hey, actually, Zwei 1 is going to be released as well in English." So it was a surprise because a lot of work needs to be done to old PC ports in order to get them to function, and also not only to get them to function well, but they also a lot of work needs to be done to make them look good, because most of them were made for a 4:3 screen. So when Xseed puts out their old PC games, usually they implement a widescreen, like a true widescreen mode, without stretching the screen. So they did a lot of work to make this look good, and I'm glad I held off on Zwei 2 Plus because I wanted to play the games in order. And these two games were for the longest time like the top 2 games that I wanted to get translated from Japanese into English.
They're really fun games.
Yeah, it's great too. I just played 10 minutes of it. I didn't play a lot, but already it was a lot of fun because you're 2 characters in that game. That's why it's called Zwei. It's the number 2 in German. So it's really funny when the second one's called Zwei 2.
Yeah, I love that.
But what's cool about it is that you could switch the 2 characters whenever you want, even while walking around in town. And each character has different lines and different ways they react to things. So you can look at something on the wall, and both characters have something entirely different to say about the thing on the wall.
That's pretty cool.
And they have unique personalities too. And it's a comedic game, and I'm really glad that Tom Lipschultz worked on this because he's one of the head translators at Xseed. He worked on Akiba's Trip and a lot of the Ease games, and
Corpse Party.
Yeah, and Corpse Party. And the Popolo Croy game from a little while back on the 3DS. So this game has a lot of comedic dialogue, so he basically needed to come up with jokes from scratch because they don't in Japan,
they don't translate
there's
well.
a lot of puns.
Normally, I'm not a fan of taking liberties, but with stuff like that, you really have no choice. It's either that or just tell a joke that isn't funny and then put a translator's note, like, here's why it was supposed to be funny. It's like, well, come on.
He went the, working designs route of, kind of making some funny references and things like that, but that's the kind of thing that has to work with this. It's kind of like Crayon Shin-Chan. When they brought it over here, they basically came up with entirely new plot for each episode and kind of worked with worked around the animation, you know what I mean? And in this, it's kind of like that. It's like he came up with his own jokes because they're supposed to be funny here. So there's something supposed to be funny here, so I'm gonna come up with something funny. So he did. So it's really good. I'm gonna continue playing that, but I still want to finish up Horizon Zero Dawn. So I'm probably not gonna go back to it. I was kind of just testing it out.
Okay.
And then I also did a little bit of other time wasting here with Pinball FX 3. So Pinball FX, the Pinball FX series has always been really cool. They come out with tables themed on something. So there are two leading pinball games, pinball platforms. There's one called Pinball Arcade, which is great, which prides itself in simulation of old pinball titles, actual pinball machines. And then there is Pinball FX. Pinball FX is always original tables based on a property. It acts like a real pinball machine in some ways, but in other ways it doesn't. It has like some kind of impossible physics kind of stuff going on, like hazards on the board that wouldn't be possible on a real table, things like that. But they're always themed around something. So they have their own generic tables that are always a lot of fun. They have like a magician theme or a myth theme or a gladiator theme, cowboy theme, that kind of thing. But the real showstoppers is that they come out with theme tables based on properties. So there are a lot of Star Wars tables. There's a lot of Marvel tables. They even did Family Guy and South Park tables. They recently came out with maybe last year, I think, a Bethesda line where there's a line of Fallout. There's a Fallout one. I think I'm not sure what the other one was, but the one that I've been playing is Doom, the one based on 2016, Doom 2016, because I just love the theme, and it's a lot of fun. It's great. So what ended up happening was Pinball FX 2 was the primary one. They had updated the physics and the interface in which you play all these tables, and then they recently just updated it to Pinball FX 3. So there's a lot of really cool changes in order to make it fun to play all of the tables together. There's like a progression to it and things you can unlock and things like that in the meta game, which is kind of cool. You could play any table and make progressions that way, and earn like special boosts and things like that. But I was playing that to see how it worked, and it's really neat. It's a lot of fun. But the last thing is Iconoclasts finally came out. Do either of you know what this is?
It sounds familiar.
I've heard the name, that's it.
And then when you tell me, I'm probably going to remember what it was.
So Iconoclasts is a Metroidvania that has been basically being made for the last like 7 years or so by a guy in, I think it's Sweden or Switzerland. I always forget. But his website's called conjack.org, and he made probably most famous for making a game called Noi to Love 2.
Oh, okay, yeah, I heard of it.
So he's a pixel artist who really loves Japanese style games and things like treasure style games. Noi to Love 2 was a game that was really cool that used the mouse and like a WASD setup where you can move the character around and then like you grab things by aiming the mouse. It's really fun. It's kind of like, it feels like a treasure game almost. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of boss battles, that kind of thing. A lot of stuff that I kind of gravitate towards. Well, this game has beautiful, Iconoclast has beautiful animation and sprite artwork. Really cool to play. It reminds me of Drill Dozer. I don't know if you ever played Drill Dozer back in the day on the GBA. But it's a lot of fun. And I only played like 10 minutes of it, but so far so good. It's really satisfying. Character has like a big wrench that she uses on everything. She's like a mechanic kind of character. She uses it as a weapon as well as to like crank things. So it's pretty satisfying doing that kind of stuff. A lot of the puzzles rely around cranking gates and stuff. So it's really cool. But that's pretty much it. I didn't play a whole lot of anything. It's just like 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. So we can move on to our question here.
Very well. So our question is from Fakafan, and it is, which of your body parts would you least like to become sentient, including internal organs?
This is such a strange question.
I know. Probably any internal organ would just be like a game ender. But I don't freaking know what I least like.
Well, I actually have a good one for this. So first of all, I guess for present, I would say my skin. Because, like, could you imagine your skin yelling at you?
I was kind of thinking that, like,
I guess the skin is an organ, yeah.
But it's an external organ. I was actually kind of thinking something similar, like my foot, because I'm constantly, stepping on it.
Ow!
That's actually good. That's actually a good point. Like, so there's multiple ways of thinking about this. One is, what body part would you not want to become sentient because it could instantly kill you, kind of thing, like internal organs. But like another way of thinking about it is, which body part would you not want to become sentient because it'll complain about everything?
Yeah, but I mean, even internal organs, like if an internal organ moves like an inch, that would cause like unreal amounts of pain, I'm sure.
But either way, it's like, imagine if let's say you were a heavy drinker and your kidney became sentient, even if it didn't move, but every single time you drank, it's like, oh god damn it, not this again.
Yeah, I'm just reminded of that little bit where Homer's brain talks to him and he tells him some piece of advice. Wow, thanks, brain. No problem. Just don't hit me on the way out of the car. Like, no problem. Just whacks his head on the ceiling. Sorry.
Well, I could just imagine that you're like your skin going rogue and then making friends with unsavory people and inviting them over. It's like, and he's basically a roommate with you in your body. It's like, I don't like your friends. Get them out of here. No, man, he's coming over.
If they leave, I leave.
Oh.
But and he's like, doing something, like your skin's doing something while I'm trying to sleep.
Well, I don't even imagine it as them being able to like do stuff. Like, just that they become sentient. Like, what's your skin gonna do? But it knows. Like that.
And the other thing about, like, if your foot becomes sentient, let's say that it had a little bit of control, even if it didn't hurt when I walked on it, but all of a sudden it's like you piss it off, so it's like, all right, and the next time you're walking, it just stops, like mid-walk or something.
Fall on your face like an idiot.
You trip and fall on your face.
But I actually had something in mind here. So you guys know this, but I've actually had 2 abdominal surgeries. I had my appendix removed and my gallbladder removed. So I can only imagine them plotting to come get me because I abandoned them somehow. They went rogue and tried to kill me.
That's
and
the
now
funny.
they're trying to get back at me now.
And the funny thing is, like, the gallbladder might come after you, but you wouldn't have the gall to fight back.
It's like a version of Taken. Like,
yeah, that's true.
You're old enough and you have kids, and your daughter gets kidnapped, and when you find out who it is, your gallbladder and your appendix with like masks on.
Yes, we weren't necessary, were we?
I
didn't meet us around, did you?
I always kind of like thought it was pretty funny that I had 2 abdominal surgeries like that. Like, I got my gallbladder removed at the age of 23. You're not supposed to like be that old and get that removed. So like I had gallstones at a very young age for that, and it was getting like gangrenous because like it was trying to function with really large gallstones in it. So I only can imagine that like my appendix when I was in 5th grade had plotted with my gallbladder. Hey, you get him now.
Yeah, that's the thing. The appendix.
He didn't have the gall, but he had the stones.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but the irony there is that the appendix went first. Then wouldn't the gall of the story like be the appendix?
At the very end.
Exactly. Only one of us can be the true appendix.
That's funny. But yeah, that and I also had like a little piece of my inner lip removed, so maybe they're hanging out with him too. I don't know. But
actually, you know what? If it were something that you could remove and just like be rid of it, if it were a threat, then in that case I'd probably opt for like hair or something. You know, you shave or whatever, it's like it's gone.
But yeah,
You
that's
murderer.
my answer for that one.
I shouldn't have been plotting against me in my own body. I was just looking
that's
up
a
for
good
number
question.
one.
I like this one. I think we turned it around on that.
Yeah, that's a funky question.
I like the funky ones.
Yeah.
That's good. All
It's
right.
a funky
well,
bunch.
Yes.
All right. So I think we should wrap it up for now. So we will move on here to our outro. So that's the show for this week. If I could start reading. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps me emotionally.
Helps me read your outro, yeah.
Helps me read my outro.
I'll read one
Also,
word per
catch us on
dollar.
Tuesday on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the podcast about our this week in our lives. Jesus. Man, I can't read today. Finally, you can friend me as VyseTheBold on PSN, Steam, Xbox Live, Twitter, and Battle.net.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, or even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then maybe consider swinging by my Patreon accounts, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me as PyroJackFrost or Cloud8540 on PSN, Battle.net, Steam, etc., etc.
Etc., etc., etc.
Quick, what's that from?
Isn't it from, it's from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Nope. Well, they might have had something like that in there, but I'm thinking The King and I.
Oh, well, maybe he was.
All right, good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Have a great week, and we will catch you on Thursday.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.